Welcome back, folks, to another live match. Now, you guys seem to like this way of me narrating over the match footage, explaining what's going through my mind as the day progresses. So, big thank you for all the nice comments that we've had. If you like this sort of thing, think about subscribing, please. Now, we've just got back from one of my local venues, Holly Farm. There's been 30 there today on the open match, really well attended, and we've had some success. Now, the next time you hear from me, I'll be on the bank. I'll be talking you through everything I've done today, and then we'll have a little debrief at the end of the video. Here we go, folks. Peg 23, Trotters Lake, Holly Farm. So, we've got a bit of space this way to the next angler. And we've got an island to chuck to. I think it's going to be a little bit too windy to fish long pole. Because we're on a bend, most of the space is on my side of the lake. So, I think short pole's going to be the way to go with this wind. I fancy margins as well. Down this edge, late on. I think we're going to start on a little feeder across. Now, mix for the feeder, pellets and ground bait. That's F1 Sweet, crushed expander. Quite heavy on the ground bait today because these fish love a ground bait. They love a bit of ground bait. And I think that's going to be good at attracting fish to start with. Not got much mixed up to start with because I think we might be altering this throughout the day. So this is my little working tub. And we'll just add ground bait or micros throughout the day, depending on what I think the fish want. On a short line, I've got some 4 mils. I've given them a bit of a splash of water, so they're just starting to soften slightly. Got a tin of corn, we've not opened him yet. Hooker expanders, maggots. Rig for the margins. Little strung bulk. 4-inch hook length. 0.14 hook length. It's about 2.5 feet deep. We've gone for 4x12 rube. The rig for just down that shelf in front of me, 4x14's rube. There it is. Same hooks, same line as main line, but this time I've got an 0.12 hook length. I just think the fish are going to be a little bit smaller. I think we're fishing maybe soft pellets in that deeper water, and hopefully down the edge late on we'll slay them on some corn. Wish me luck. Now, because of my last match at Makings where we wasted quite a bit of time fishing short on the pole, I wanted to start on the feeder. Also, on these particular pegs, the casting to the far bank is quite tight. The anglers either side are casting very close to where I'm fishing, so I felt that those fish on the far bank wouldn't last very long. What I wanted to do was make the most of those fish early. Obviously, casting my little feeder across, I'm fishing my single maggot, my single dead red maggot, a lot of ground bait with some pellets in that little hybrid feeder. It's a little 18-gram hybrid feeder, and I've started maybe 50 centimetres away from the island, half a metre away from the island. Just gives myself a little bit of room to go to if I need to go in that shallower water later on in the session. Now, there's a huge variety in size at Holly Farm. There's little F1s, little carp, there's some old original carp. The fishery was taken over maybe 4 years ago, and the new owners have put loads of fish in it. When I used to fish this venue maybe 15 years ago, there was a stock of big old wily fish, difficult to catch fish. Those fish are still there, but the venue has been rejuvenated with a load of new smaller fish that give you loads of bites. Those are the fish that I was expecting to catch on my little feeder. Didn't take long for bites to come. First fish on the feeder, a little F1. I've got my little soft 9-foot rod. I think that's really important. A short soft rod for chucking the short distance, catching really small fish that have a tendency of dropping off is really important. Now, years ago, I remember doing exceptionally well on this particular lake, fishing method feeders for those bigger carp. I can't believe it, but looking back, I was using an 11-foot rod. way too overgunned for the job. The island on this lake is maybe 25 metres away maximum. No need for such a long rod. Little 9-footer does the job perfectly. Now the weather forecast for the day was very changeable. We were going to get some showers, strong gusts of wind, there were going to be periods of sunshine, and I felt that by fishing the feeder it gave me a great chance of making sure that I'm always presenting my bait perfectly. I'm not struggling to hold a pole in any strong gusts of wind, and also I felt that I could always tick over. I feel that later on in the session, this peg in particular, with this wind, I'm going to catch a lot of fish short. The tow isn't particularly bad, the wind isn't that strong that I can't hold my pole. A line at 7 metres is hopefully where I'm going to catch loads of fish later on in the session. For now though, I've got to keep on this feeder. Obviously I'm really wary of what happened on my last match at Makings, where I came off the feeder way too early and messed around on the pole. If I go on the pole, I want to make sure that I'm going to catch on it this time. Looking around the lake, quite a few people seem to be getting buys. Not big fish though, I think they're going to show later on in the session, but a lot of people are catching these smaller F1s. Now, further down the lake to my left, where the wind's blowing in, years ago that always used to be a great area for big fish. Perfect margin pegs, you get a lot of space in that corner, the wind's pushing in there today, and the last match I fished, they actually were first and second in the match, so I was fancying those pegs down there to catch a big weight of fish. The last match I also fished, doing a live match on this particular peg actually for the Edge channel that myself and Lee Kerry run, and I managed to finish 3rd place. No big fish at all small fish. So I'm just wondering, with the amount of small fish that I'm catching on this particular match, whether the big fish want to be up here or whether they want to be further down in that windy bay 100 metres to my left. Now loading the feeder I think is really important. It depends how quickly you want to get your bites, depending on whether you bury that hook bait deep in the feeder or leave it showing so you get an instant bite. Quite often today I was leaving it showing right near the top. You can see the maggot through the top of the ground bait, and that way occasionally as soon as the feeder was hitting the surface I was getting a bite straight away. Obviously those fish straight in on the feeder, they were averaging 8 or 10 ounce ravenous fish, quite newly stocked into the lake. They were often straight on that hook bait, and by fishing a small bait, a single dead red maggot, they can easily take it in their mouths, and we were getting loads of bites. Halfway through the match, we had a real lull in the action. I think this coincided with the sun coming out and a shadow being cast when I'm chucking my feeder. I always feel that, especially in the springtime, the fish, if there's any sun on the water, they want to be in the sun. And because the sun is making that shadow on the water where I was casting my feeder to, I think they were avoiding the area. The fishing was getting slower and slower. I've seen it before when we've done underwater filming on very clear lakes. You can see the patrol routes of the carp, and they never want to go in any shadows. They always want to stay in that sunny, warm water. And I feel that the fish now are moving onto my side of the lake. There's a few fish being caught on the pole. The stamp of fish that I was catching were perfect for the pole. And with the guys down the other end of the lake catching the bigger fish now short, I felt that to make any damage, I needed to catch some fish on that short pole line and catch the fish a lot faster. The last time I fished this lake, I fished with hard 4mm pellets in a bait band. Now, I felt because I was fishing short, soft pellets were going to be loads better. Those smaller fish were going to take the bait in a lot better, and I was going to hit more bites and get more bites because of that. That being said, I still wanted to feed 4mm pellets. I felt I was going to get less line bites by feeding a slightly bigger bait. Obviously, micros are a great feed, they're great for getting fish in the swim, but in the 4.5, 5 foot of water I'm faced with on that short line, I think it would have been a little bit too deep and those micros would have taken too long to settle. So I rattled out 8 to 10 4mm over the top of my float and laid my rigging over the top, trying to keep everything nice and still and waiting for a single bite. What I don't want to do is get loads of indications, loads of fish in the swim and end up foul hooking fish and causing loads of problems. I want to get one nice little bite, little dink on that pole float that's dotted right down and keep my swim nice and quiet. Fish on the pole line were a very similar stamp to the ones we were catching on the feeder. It just felt that I was catching them slightly faster once I got going on the pole line. We'd get a little spell of 2 or 3 fish really quickly, then we'd maybe have to wait 10 or 15 minutes before we'd get another flurry of fish. Little F1s, a couple of tiny little carp, we had a nice couple of skimmers as well. It was good fishing, lots of bites, we were catching lots of fish. I was unsure about the weight we were putting together though because of the mixed size of fish. A lot of fish from 8 ounce to maybe 1 pound 4, and I always feel when the fish are that sort of size, it's really difficult to keep tabs on what weight you've actually got. One of the things that was quite interesting, even though later in the session it felt like a few fish were starting to feed, less bait was loads better. So I had times where I felt I could push the peg, maybe feed 15 or 20 4mm over the top, feed a bit more bait, try and create a bit more competition in the swim. It just pushed the fish away all the time. 6 to 8 4mm rattled over the top of my float, laying my rig in, trying to keep everything nice and still, was absolutely spot on today. The more bait I fed, the longer it took to get a bite, that was for certain. By this time I'd been told that a few of the guys to my left were catching some big fish. I'd not seen any big carp caught down our end of the lake, so I was hoping a few better fish would turn up later on in the session. As it happened, as the rain started to set in, we caught some better fish. Not huge carp, but just bigger F1s, averaging £3. Real nice bonus fish. Obviously, you've got to take your time. I'm fishing 012, I'm fishing a small hook. I've got to make sure that every fish ends up in the net, because you could just tell it was going to be a really close match. We seem to have had 4 seasons in one today. We've had rain, we've had sunshine, we've had that strong wind. Now it's gone flat calm again. It's beautiful for spotting your float, perfect for setting that trap in your peg. You can get everything dead right. And this last half hour of the session was absolutely fantastic, especially with those bigger F1s. Trying to push the swim, but I'm not too sure it worked. I think it worked against me. Every time I hook a fish, I'll shift back, feed just a few pellets over the top just to keep some bait in the swim, maybe set it up for the next fish, and then fill my little pot up again with those 6 or 8 pellets and create that little central area right over my hook bait, and that way I know I've got the perfect trap. What another great day on the bank. We've managed to win the match with just over £74. We've managed to pip second place by £1. It's been really close today. I think there's been 2 72s, a 73, and myself £74. So every fish mattered, and I love it when it's like that. Now, Holly Farm has changed now. There's loads of bites to be had, loads of F1s. You're fishing for fish. When I used to fish this venue, quite a few years ago now, it was just carp, and you were sitting and waiting, you were setting traps, and not a lot of bites, to be honest. It was really interesting fishing. But now it's all about active fishing, getting bites. You can make something happen. It's fantastic. I'm pretty blessed, really, to have so many good fisheries in my local area. Within 20 miles of myself, there's probably 15 brilliant commercial fisheries that I can rock up to, and there's a midweek match on. So hopefully we'll get a few of those done this year. Now, thank you very much, all your kind comments. You seem to like this sort of format. Please think about subscribing. That way you won't miss anything in the future. Until next time, folks, tight lines.